Michael, welcome back to the show, my friend. We had you on about a month and a half ago. You guys were fixing to play your first leg against Inter Miami, and we talked about what we thought how that game, the two legs were going to go. You were feeling pretty optimistic. Not you didn't think it was going to be a blowout or anything, but you were like, I think we have a chance. This team is playing really well this year. Speaking of Vancouver, and I don't think you were really intimidated by Lionel Messi and Inter Miami or the Barca boys. Well,
No.
they won 5-1. They absolutely put a beat down on Inter Miami, which I was shocked at how big of a upset that not upset it was, but how badly they beat them. But hey, Vancouver just absolutely had their way with Inter Miami.
It was a pair of games that I think just showed how good this Whitecaps team are.
Hey, if you're enjoying the video, make sure you give it a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're trying to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So make sure you subscribe and hit that little bell notification so you never miss any of my videos. Now, back to the video.
And like you can say, Miami maybe didn't perform on the nights, but also the Whitecaps didn't let them perform. And I was down at the second leg in Miami, and when it was 1-0 early on in that second leg, I mean, it was concerning, but I was totally confident that the Whitecaps were going to score in that game. And because they kept a clean sheet in the first leg, you felt if they could score, that was it. 2 goals in 2 minutes, I don't think anyone had planned for just after halftime from chats that we were having with everyone. But that clean sheet in the first leg is really what won them the tie, because Miami knew if they concede once, and you saw the reaction of the players as soon as that first goal went in, they knew that was pretty much it. And then the quick second when they were still down just killed the tie, and then you could enjoy it. And it was a way more enjoyable second half than first half.
Yeah, and I thought the first leg, Vancouver was definitely the better team. I also thought maybe the distance played a factor into it. For both sides, it would, because it's the furthest teams from each other in Major League Soccer. It's like over 3,000 miles, which is a long trip. It's probably, I don't know, what, a 7-hour flight, maybe 8-hour flight,
It
something like
was it
that.
was 6, if direct at 6. There's not a lot of direct flights if you're a fan making it, but the charters took 6 hours.
So that's a long distance, especially even for some of Miami's older players. Maybe they, that's not necessarily comfortable or an ideal situation for them. But then when Vancouver came back to went to Fort Lauderdale to play Inter Miami, they beat them even worse than they did at home, 3-1. I mean, they just never had a chance, it felt like. And that's when I thought to myself, okay, I mean, I was already convinced this team. We talked about it. I've watched the Vancouver Whitecaps play this year. I was convinced they're good. But when they I feel like they were the team that broke Inter Miami. They're the team that really, after that series, the two legs, it's Miami has not been the same.
Yeah, I actually said that to my wife this weekend when we were watching their fantastic game, the 3-all draw, but I said they've not been the same. And it's like that series with Vancouver dented their confidence, and they'll bounce back. There's no way when you've got all that talent that you're not going to hit a stride. There's a transfer window coming up. You know there'll be moves. You know that they'll just spend some money. And right now, though, their confidence took such a knock. And Lionel Messi, one of the best players of all time. I still don't know if I class him as the best, because it's hard to compare different eras always, but there's no doubting the quality that he still has. But Vancouver just managed to negate him and make him not look a threat in those 2 games. And he's struggled since then to kind of find his mojo a little bit. And if Messi isn't flowing, then Miami, by the looks of it, aren't flowing either. Now they seem to have maybe got a little bit back and coming back the way they did at the weekend. I think going forward, we will see a different kind of Miami now. But Vancouver got them at the perfect time, and Vancouver deserve the credit for not letting them play.
I couldn't agree more. And so because of what they did and sealing the deal, and a lot of people thought Miami were going to win that series. that Vancouver Whitecaps magic, or whatever you want to say, that their run of luck was coming to an end, but that couldn't be further from the truth. The Vancouver Whitecaps, like everybody predicted, Michael, was going to be in the CONCACAF Champions Cup Final. Um, this is a big game. This is a huge game this Sunday. It's been a little over a month since they played their last match against Inter Miami in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So it's been a pretty long break. And one of the things I always would say back in the day, a disadvantage MLS would have is that they would have to play these big games almost in their preseason form. Like they really weren't. But now Vancouver has 15 league matches or 14 league matches under their belt, several CONCACAF Champions Cup matches under their belt. This is a as well informed team as you possibly can get. So I honestly, yes, playing in Mexico is not ideal. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I can't think of any excuses of why this Vancouver Whitecaps, as they are currently playing, can't lift this trophy up and win the biggest trophy in North American soccer.
Yeah, and if you'd said this even 6 months ago, even people here would have been like, that's crazy talk. But what Jesper Sorensen has done is he's instilled a belief into this team. He's gone with a formation and tactics and playing style that actually suits the players, and they're all interchangeable. Some you get bigger drop-offs than others. Like if Brian White's out of the attack does lack a little. If Andres Kubis is out in the defensive midfield role, there's holes that open up. Even if you switch out one of the main centre-backs of Blackman and Veselinovic, there's a dip. But the guys that are coming in, it's not as big a dip as we've maybe seen in previous years. And he's got them all believing in the system, believing in each other, working as a team. And you talked about the big gap between the Miami game and this. When you spoke to the players, none of them wanted to talk about this cup final. It's like, we just want to talk about the league matches coming up. We'll talk about the cup final in the week of the cup final. So this week, they're starting to talk a little bit more about it. They're still looking at the Minnesota game that's going on Wednesday before anything else, but they're now starting to think about that. But Jesper Sorensen has also said he knows it's just human nature. It's in people's minds. How far back, how far forward. So that's maybe affected some of the performances. There's definitely been a little bit of dip, but it's also the number of games catching up with him. I think we're somewhere in the mid-20s, 24, 25 games, because we've also had a game in the Canadian Championship as well. And it's just to have 24 games and we're not even out of May is way too much football. But the other crazy thing is when Vancouver have 1 game weeks, they haven't played well. When they have 2 game weeks, they've got well. The only games they've lost are 1 game weeks. They're 0-0 draws, 1 game weeks. And the players want to have these 2 game weeks, which is why some folk, and I was one of them, felt it's crazy playing Minnesota in a top of the table clash 4 days before a cup final. But the sports science and talking to the players, they want to play that game because they want to be at their peak. And they feel they'll be at their peak by playing a game midweek than just training.
So they do play Minnesota tomorrow night. Are you expecting all the starters to play in maybe limited minutes? Are you expecting to play the full 90? Because you have to be very delicate about this. You don't want to do anything that would jeopardize winning that trophy. And even if Brian White or Vitti or Tristan Blackman or Kuvas says, hey, I can play 90 minutes, you still have to be like, hey, listen, I know you probably could, but we have the biggest game in the club history this Sunday. Biggest game in club history. That I don't think I'm overselling that either. I think it really is because it's the biggest trophy you can win. Do you expect the starters to play all 90 minutes, or are you thinking they get some rest?
It'll be a mix. I think some starters will start. For example, Andres Kubis was suspended at the weekend, so he's fresh. I would expect him to get that start. Now, I think all the starters that will be taking the field in Mexico City on Sunday will get playing time. I don't think any of them won't play, but most of them will maybe be coming off the bench. Crazily, again, it kind of feels almost fated, some of this. We played Minnesota before the second leg in Miami, in Minnesota, and it was a heavily rotated team. And then some guys came off the bench, they got 3 quick goals, and they came away with a huge road victory that I don't think anyone was expecting. So I would expect maybe 3/4 rotation tomorrow. And then the guys like Brian White, Pedro Vite, they'll come off the bench. One player that will definitely start is Sebastian Berhalter, because sadly he will be suspended for the final. So he's already had his cup final. That second half against Miami was his cup final. The way he played was just like incredible. So he'll start against Minnesota, and then the rest will just come off the bench.
Yeah, that is a huge miss. Sebastian Berhalter missing that game, because I think Sebastian Berhalter has been the best USMNT player in MLS this year. I truly believe that. I think he is just really, and some people thought maybe he's gotten more opportunities than most would because of his father, nepotism, maybe people they know. But even if that is true, he has really just ran away with the opportunity and played the best ball of his life this year under Jesper Sorensen. And you love to see that. And it's a shame that he's not going to be able to, contribute and help his team, at least in the final. He's contributed up until this point, but not be able to try to seal the deal for them to win this trophy on Sunday.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking for him, because these moments don't come around too often. And it's like same with Ryan Gauld, injured. He might never have a chance to play in a Champions Cup final again. None of these guys might. Sebastian Berhalter, for me, has been the Whitecaps' best player in this cup run. And his performances against Miami were huge. His deliveries on set pieces, just general crosses, they're pinpoint. You saw it in the game against RSL at the weekend. That first goal, the corner, it could not have been any more perfectly placed onto Brian White's head. And they just know where each other is going to be. It's a huge loss. He brings some grit as well, which is partly why he's suspended, because he doesn't shirk a tackle. But you kind of see, I spoke to him right after the game in Miami, and had to ask about the fact that he was going to be missing it. But he basically just took it in his stride. It's like, look, I wanted to help the boys get to that final. I've done that, so I've done my job. Now, players, when he got booked in the first half against Miami in that second leg, he could just have crumbled. And the second half, his head could have been all over the place. But he went out there, said, "This is my cup final," got a goal, got a couple of assists, ran the show. And I think that just shows another part of his growth. He has earned this national team call up with his performances. There's definitely nothing about who his father is. He's been one of the best American, yeah, as you said, one of the best American players, really, in MLS this season, as has Brian White, as has, I would also say, Tristan Blackman,
Yeah.
who didn't get the call up. And Canada's apparently put feelers out to him, which is very strange to me. But I mean, he does. If
Yeah.
America's not going to bring him in at this time, he's probably not going to get brought in at 28. So if another country is going to give him the chance, I mean, go for it. But Sebastian Berhalter will be a big loss. There's guys that can come in and do a similar job, but it will make that midfield weaker on Sunday.
So obviously you weren't overconfident, but you felt confident in the ability to beat the Inter Miami. Cruz Azul just lost to Club America in the Liga MX. I think at the Clausura playoffs, they lost in the 2-leg match. They haven't played a game since May 18th, I want to say, if I'm not mistaken. So they're going to have almost 2 weeks off in between games. A little bit, they're going to be pretty well rested. Some people debate on if that's too long to not play or if that's perfect. Either way, they haven't played in 2 weeks. They finished third in the league. Very, very good team. How are you feeling about Vancouver's chances? Obviously, we both know they have a chance, but are you a little worried? Are you thinking that Vancouver actually matches up pretty well against this team?
I think they do. I would say Cruz Azul look to have quite a potent attack. I watched their two legs against, now was it Tigres they played in the semi-final? All these games are blurring into one at the moment. I think it was Tigres. Oh, it was.
In the Concacaf?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So I watched that. I watched the games against Seattle, but that was more just casually because I didn't think we were going to be playing them in a final at that point. But I avidly watched their games against Tigres. They look susceptible at the back. I think the Whitecaps have players that can really cause them problems at the back, but I also think they have players up front that can cause us problems. So it's going to be really who takes their chances on the night. I'm going into this feeling with the underdogs, but feeling quietly confident as well. The only thing I would say to kind of temper everyone's expectations, we've never actually won a game in Mexico. We've drawn, that's got us through in away goals, but we've never actually won a game over 90 or 120 minutes in Mexico in the club's history. We've only ever actually beaten one Mexican team over 90 minutes, which is Tijuana in the League's Cup. So we don't have a history of going up against these teams and getting victories. So that is always at the back of my mind. That said, if we go through 120 minutes level and win on penalties, if you offered me that right now, I would bite your hand off for it. But I am confident, but it is going to be who takes their chances. I think the gap for Cruz Azul between matches doesn't help them. You get a little bit rusty, you get a little bit maybe lazy at training, and then when you get lazy, things can happen, injuries can happen, tweaks can happen. I would rather be playing matches and being totally match fit. We've seen it in the MLS playoffs. The conference champions have a couple of weeks off, play a game, and they look terrible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. Cruz Azul's a good side, but I mean, I'm not really someone that believes in fate per se, but there's just something about this cup run that it does kind of feel fated. The fact that against Saprissa, we survived a header from Kendall Waston, our former player, that if that had gone in, would have leveled the tie on the night. We then got another goal, which we may or may not have got, but we would have lost if we hadn't got that goal. We've got Tristan Blackman's dramatic stoppage time leveler against Monterrey. And then there was the stunning comeback as well and performances against Miami. And it just feels like our name could be on the trophy.
No, it does. You just mentioned that Vancouver has never beaten a Mexican team in Mexico, and that's the precedent. But this is the year of unprecedented times for Vancouver Whitecaps. Everything about this season has never really happened before. This just feels like a new club. Now, I am a little worried, nothing to do with Vancouver, but just more of the barrier, the hurdle that MLS clubs always struggle to cross when it comes to playing Liga MX teams in CONCACAF Champions Cup Finals. MLS has been in I want to say 7 of the last 8 CONCACAF Champions Cup Finals, and they've only won 1, which was Seattle beating Pumas back in 2022. So obviously we have a good chance of making it. We just don't ever have a good chance of winning it. I really can't stand the fact that this game is played at Cruz Azul. I wish it was in a neutral site at least. It just doesn't really feel fair that if both teams made it to the final, why one of them gets to host it and the other one has to travel probably 2,500 miles still, I'd say, from Vancouver to
it's another
Mexico City.
6-hour flight. It's like my flight down on Saturday is 6 hours.
Yeah, so it just feels like it's not really fair, and it's only one match. Now, I know that in the Champions League they do that now, as that they have the final, which it's going to be Milan and Inter Milan and PSG. That's at a neutral site. Most of these games, I feel like the big championship games, that's especially a regional championship for your federation, is normally in a neutral site. So I don't really like that. We saw what happened to Columbus last year. They went down and played Pachuca. Columbus was a really good team. Now, there was rumors about them getting food poisoning, and maybe that was what screwed them up, and also the elevation. So if I had to give some advice to Vancouver, I'd say bring your own food, bring your own water. Don't eat any of the food down. Just be as careful as you can, just in case something funny happens. You don't want to risk anything like that. But it just, you can make the excuse, but at the end of the day, you just got to win. And MLS has always had this hurdle. And I want Vancouver, because I'm not a fan of any team, but I do want to see the league do well. I want Vancouver to win this tournament. I want MLS to start separating themselves from Liga MX, because we're not trying to be Liga MX. We're trying to be better. We're trying to be one of the best leagues in the world. And if we can't beat a league south of us that's not even heralded maybe barely as a top 10 league, we have a lot of issues, especially if we're trying to be bigger than what we are.
Yeah, it's one of the things that annoys me about the Leagues Cup, that the MLS teams do well in that and everyone holds it up. Oh, look, the gap's getting closer. It's not. It's just because of the timing of it for the Mexican teams. And that whole tournament just feels like a tournament that's been put together to try and make MLS feel better about themselves. But it doesn't work that way. Like, we're playing Cruz Azul now when they're basically peak, or maybe just off their peak, now that they did lose that semi-final in the Clausura, but they're at the top of their game. They're coming off a long season, so there is a little bit of tiredness there. We're at the midway point of the season. This should be the perfect time for an MLS team to meet a Liga MX team. I agree with you on the one game and the not being at neutral. The problem, though, is this tournament hasn't really caught the imagination of a lot of people in Canada and in America. So the danger would be, wherever you had it, you're not going to get a good crowd. Whereas if you have it in one of the home teams, you're pretty much guaranteed a near sellout. We were 10 minutes away from hosting it here in Vancouver. If they hadn't got that penalty, I think we were hosting it by that point. We would have filled BC Place. It would have been 54,000. It would have saved me a lot of money as well. But
Yeah.
I get why it has to be a site where you're going to guarantee fans in, because if you played it in San Diego, you'd have got some fans, but nothing like what we're going to see in Mexico City. There's over 800 Whitecaps fans making the trip. And
Wow.
a lot of them are making a week or so of it. Some of them that I know are going to the coast after the game and just having a little beach holiday. So they are going down. They're going down in numbers. They've got 5% of the stadium, so it's like 1,700 maximum tickets they can get. But that means 95% not friendly to the Whitecaps. And I mean, you can't use it as an excuse, because you knew what the rules were going into the tournament. But it does put whoever is the home team at a huge advantage. Seattle, when they won it, it was still in the 2-leg format.
Yeah.
I would rather we didn't have the Leagues Cup and we had a 2-legged final. If it's because of there's not enough dates in the calendar, get rid of something like that. Have the 2-legged final. That's the only way something like this is going to be fair.
I hate the Leagues Cup. I just think it's a bloated tournament that doesn't really prove anything. It's a cash grab. It doesn't. I can't stand it. It's a novelty tournament. It was cool once. I'm tired.
I enjoyed the first year of it, and then last year it's like, no time for this.
I'm not looking forward to it this year. Also, that's an interesting point, about maybe fans not being interested in going to a neutral site, like if they had it in Texas or, somewhere like Arizona, somewhere like that. Maybe that's because we just haven't won it enough. Maybe that's why there isn't a buzz for attention. When one league just wins it every year, except one time in the last 25 years, it's kind of like, why is this essentially Mexican trophy matter to anyone else? They're guaranteed to win it every year. So what is it? We see this in South America and, obviously in Europe, there's a new winner almost every year from different leagues most of the time. So obviously that kind of just makes it more exciting and, there's mystery to it. There's not really that here. It's pretty much Liga MX and MLS, and Liga MX just dominates us. This is the most important Concacaf Champions Cup in the history of the tournament for Major League Soccer. They need to win this, and especially because of what it would say for the league going down to Mexico and doing this for the first time, one-legged final, going down to Mexico, beating them. There is no excuses or anything that anyone would say of why MLS was favored to win this match.
Yeah. I mean, if the Whitecaps get the result, they have very much earned it throughout their whole run, but especially in the final. I mean, you mentioned about what happened to Columbus last year. So in our latest podcast, I was chatting with Whitecaps CEO Axel Schuster. So I actually asked him about that. And the club have reached out to Columbus. They've had long chats with Columbus. What did you do? Where do you think it fell down? And Axel didn't want to give anything away, understandably. But he said, we've had those discussions. We know, and they seem to know where they think things fell down. So they'll have learned from that. Other MLS teams going forward will have learned from that. But if you look at what's at the end of this as well, Club World Cup spot, whatever you think of that tournament, I'm still not totally sold on it because of how they're really doing it. But in 4 years' time, a Club World Cup with no MLS teams would be damaging to the league.
Yes.
Whereas this year, we've definitely got 2, potentially 3. I think it will be 3. I would imagine LAFC is going to get the job done.
We'll see.
Right. Well, yeah. The Seattle are in it because they earned it. Miami are in it because they've got Messi, and that's really
exactly
the
right.
only reason. LAFC would have kind of earned it, but they should have been in it anyway instead of Inter Miami. If you're looking at criteria for a host country, but we know it's not going to be here in 4 years' time. So if that is a tournament for around the world with no MLS clubs in it, it's damaging. So at least one MLS team, whether it's the Whitecaps or whoever, in the next 4 years have to make sure that they're in that tournament. Otherwise, it doesn't put the league in a good light. I do wonder if the pressure will get put on to make it back to two-legged finals again. I guess it's going to really depend who makes it in future years, and is there outrage? It needs a big team from a big market whose media would really kick up a stink about it that might force a change somewhere down the line. Not enough folks, sadly, care about Vancouver that they would protest it's a one-legged final, I don't think.
Now, is this, I don't know about Canada. I think this would probably be on TSN if I'm not mistaken, the final. Is it not on
No,
TSN? What's it going to be
no.
on?
Yeah, see, this is the other problem. All of the Whitecaps games have been on a subscription service called One Soccer. Now, One Soccer, most people watching this will never have heard of them. Canadian only company. What they do for Canadian soccer, first of all, is tremendous. They've invested in it when TSN, Sportsnet, CBC have not. So they show the Canadian Premier League games every week. They show the Canadian men and women's national team games, Concacaf competitions at club and national level. So this whole run has been on a service that costs $100 a year that people that follow the Whitecaps don't really have, because Whitecaps games are only on it maybe 4 times a year. So why would you pay for that service? So this final will be on One Soccer as well. And there's viewing parties in the city. There's one at BC Place on the mezzanine outside of it. Pubs are having it. But the general fan won't be able to watch it unless they get a monthly subscription, which you can get for $15, but it's still $15 is a lot of money for one game. Or you can't even listen to it on the radio because there's no radio coverage for this either. So that's been the hard thing. The Whitecaps are having their best run in a competition, and not everyone has got to see it.
That's crazy. And this is, like I said earlier, this is the biggest trophy in the region. This is our UEFA Champions League. This is our Copa Libertadores championship. This is huge. This is decide who the best team is in the entire region. This is a big deal. This is something that should get, honestly, millions of views. This should be a very highly viewed. I mean, I don't know how many. I want to say it's like several 100 million people watch the UEFA Champions League final, if I'm not mistaken. I know it's a lot. This should get a couple million views at least, this match between Vancouver and Cruz Azul. Sadly, it probably won't.
No, I mean, you would hope for that. I mean, here, there is only going to be a fraction of folk that see it. Like this channel was talking about One Soccer, so they have the rights to the Canadian Championship. So Whitecaps played their first game this past week in it, and the kickoff times overlapped. So Whitecaps fans, unless they had bought the app, because it's also available on some cable distribution networks, and it's on Fubo as well. But if you didn't buy the actual app, we missed the first half hour of the Whitecaps game because the kickoff times overlapped. So I actually found an illegal stream of Fox Sports 2, and I watched the first half hour in that. Now, that's because I wanted to do that, but your average fan's not going to go to those lengths.
No, they're
And
convenience fans. Let's be honest, a lot of people are convenience fans.
yeah, and that's the problem this tournament has. It's just it hasn't got the eyeballs in it. The only reason we had 54,000 for the semi-final at BC Place is Messi was there.
Yeah.
And the good thing about it is people went to see Messi, but the cheer when the Whitecaps got the second goal was huge. And after the novelty of seeing Messi had kind of died down, it was a way different atmosphere, and it was very much pro Whitecaps. So you want to convert those people to come back to the games, but to do that, they need to see the games. And even the MLS games, there's a couple on TSN, but most of them's on Apple. And again, the casual fans not going to go and pay for that.
I agree. This should be on Fox. This should be on TSN. I mean, this is a big deal, and it should be treated like a big deal. I know it's going to be on the big broadcasting network. I think it's either Unimas or Univision in Mexico. It should be like that on every. It should be like that in the United States. It should be like that in Canada. Hopefully, that happens one day soon. Sooner than later. But before I let you go, Michael, I haven't even asked this. What is your prediction for this match? What's the score going to be? Who is going to win?
I think the Whitecaps will win on penalties. I could see it being 1-1 after 90 minutes, maybe 2-2 after extra time. But then it goes to penalties and the Whitecaps get the win, which is maybe not going to be ideal for some of the travelling fans, because I know some of them have a flight booked at 1 a.m. after the game. So the longer that game gets on, is going to make it a bit dicier for them getting that flight. But I think the Whitecaps on penalties.
I agree. I think it's going to be 1-1 after. I think it's going to be 1-1 after 90, 1-1 after the 30 extra minutes, and then I think it's going to go to penalties. And I think the Whitecaps are going to win probably 5-4 on PKs. I think it's going to be an instant classic. I think that some people who have, because let's be honest, there's a lot of people who still haven't got to witness what the Whitecaps are about this year. And I think this might be one of the first times, especially in the U.S., they're going to watch them see Cruz Azul, and I think they're going to be pretty impressed with what they see. And they're going to say, wow, this team is pretty good. This is a good team.
Yeah. I'm glad they had that performance at RSL, because it had been 3 draws, some bumpy performances as well. They needed that as a confidence booster. I mean, we're recording this before the Minnesota game. I don't know if we can take too much from that no matter what because of the rotation. But that performance against RSL, fighting back against LAFC before that, shows a team that just does not give up. We also have a secret weapon in that I have a lucky hat that I bought when I was down in Oregon before the Portland 5-0 playoff game last year. I was at Cannon Beach. I bought the hat. I wore it to that game. We won that 5-0. I've worn it during every game of this cup run. Took it to Miami with me. It's under lock and key at the moment. It's coming down to Mexico City. The Whitecaps have never lost while I'm wearing that hat.
Keep the streak going. Got to finish it off.
It'll go in the Hall of Fame if they get this done.
Has to. That hat is going to definitely be in Mexico. Michael, before I let you go, where can the people find you at, follow you at, and listen to your podcast at?
You can find all our stuff, aftn.ca. That stands for away from the number. So aftn.ca. Our podcast is on there. We're the longest running English language soccer podcast in Canada, going since 2013. The current episode features a chat with Axel Schuster, the CEO, and we've got another one coming out late Thursday or Friday where we'll be previewing the cup final. We've got interviews with Daniel Rios, Jaden Nelson, a couple of other things in the works as well that's not finalized yet. But yeah, you'll get our full build up to that if you want to know more about the Whitecaps.
I appreciate your time. Hey, good luck on Sunday. Let's hope the Whitecaps can win and have another MLS champion in the Concacaf Champions Cup. Until next time, guys, I'll see you all soon.